Sup, Tomboy?
Sup, pizza.
What's up, everybody?
What up?
Welcome back to Pizza Bagels. How's it going, bub?
Not bad. You?
Good, good.
Sweet.
Just a quick little update before we get into the whole meat and potatoes. Remember last week's episode we had Travis on, the MT?
Yeah.
And we asked him if he liked Transformers and what the name of his ambulance would be.
Oh.
So
he did his homework.
Yeah, so he finally, he messaged me back, and he said that they decided that the name would be Doc.
Okay.
And
Doctor, yeah.
Right, yeah, which I was like, okay, I'm like, this is this kind of like, you know, because like, you know, ambulance, doctor, you're on the way to the hospital for a doctor scene. He's like, well, yeah, I mean, kind of like, because like the ambulance, like if it was a Transformer, it would be like the doctor of the Transformers. I'm like, damn, that's actually a pretty good point.
You need an oil change.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of...
I mean, Doc's a cool nickname, too.
Doc is a cool nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc Brown.
Doc, one of the 7 dwarves.
Dwarves?
Yeah. Dwarfs?
Yeah.
As if it's plural, it's with a V, isn't it?
You had an R in there. Dwarves.
Dwarves. It's with the V, not enough, right?
Yeah.
Is it the 7 dwarfs or the 7 dwarves?
Now I'm questioning it.
I'm only asking because there's a band called the Dwarves.
I'm questioning how I said it. Dwarves.
Isn't
Dwarves.
Dwarves? Dwarves. Dwarfs.
I don't think there's an R in there.
Yeah, you're the producer. You look it up. Is it Snow White and the 7 dwarfs with an F or dwarves with a V?
I've always said the dwarves.
You said what?
Dwarves.
Dwarves.
Yeah.
Like DORVES? Or are you saying dwarfs?
Okay, it's DWARFS.
So they said dwarfs.
Dwarves.
Okay. So is dwarves not a thing?
I don't know. I think they're just saying it weird.
So is the band name, they're just trying to be cool, and it's like instead of dwarfs, they would call ourselves the dwarves with a V?
I think so.
The 7 dwarves? That just feels like that's a plural version.
It's just a weird word to say
like
by itself.
It is weird.
And then you're questioning it. We're probably saying it right or wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Call us. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, text in and let us know if we're saying it wrong.
Call us in, man.
Yeah, or call. Yeah, leave us
Yeah,
a voicemail and make fun of us.
Because we could read text, but
Yeah.
you know,
We want to
we
hear
don't
your
know
voice.
your pronunciation of it.
Yeah, that's correct. If you do leave the voicemail,
You're not wrong.
yeah, you should. Yeah, we want to hear how you pronounce it. 440-363.
0121.
Nice. Yeah, let us know if we're right or wrong here. Because I feel like dwarves with a V
I think you're right.
is like the plural version.
It sounded weird that I'm like, no, you're saying that wrong.
So either Disney is like, we're going to make it cool and say dwarfs with an F, or the punk band is trying to be cool and use a V instead of an F.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, call and let us know. 440-363.
0121.
Nice. Okay.
But Doc's coming though. Go back to your.
Oh, yeah. I forgot how we even started with this. Yeah, Doc. It is a cool name.
Thanks for doing the homework.
Yeah. Thanks for, letting me know there, Travis. Well, speaking of guests, we got a new one on today.
Hell yeah.
His name's Jake.
Okay.
And he has something called Hyperphantasia. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay. So, by definition, it's a condition characterized by exceptionally vivid and detailed mental imagery, often described as having a lifelike quality. Examples include seeing a mental image of an apple in one's hand so vividly that it feels like the apple is actually there, or recalling past experiences with such detail that it feels like re-experiencing them, which is interesting. Does it kind of feel like almost like the synesthesia-ish kind of?
Spin-off of it.
Like kind of like a spin-off. Like kind of just like that, like your feelings or the I don't even know how to
see
even
mental images that like
right
are there.
Okay. Well, I guess the only way we're gonna find out is if we just call him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Stand by, folks. We're going to call Jake. And then
No, and then.
hello?
Oh. Hi.
Hey, is this
Sorry
Jake?
about that. Hello? Hi.
Hey, man. How's
Yeah,
it
this is
going?
Jake. Hi, it's going good. How about yourself?
Good, good, man. Thanks for coming on to Pizza Bagels.
Oh, yeah.
We got me and the co-host Tomboy here.
What's up, Jake?
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
So, yeah, thanks for coming on. I briefly was kind of briefing, I guess, Tomboy here, kind of what this hyperphantasia is, but
Yeah.
I feel like if you could probably maybe explain it a little better than I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. So, let me put it like this. Hyperphantasia, it's kind of like, so, I'm sorry. I was throwing laundry in and flushing the toilet. Okay.
I was just asking, I was like, I
Um,
hear the toilet. It's okay, man. If you were pooping, we could have waited.
no, it's fine. Hyperphantasia is kind of like when somebody, say, reads a book. To to varying levels, people's imagination can kind of paint a picture to what that book is describing. Some people, it happens easier than others, you know. And this isn't the main example. This is like the pre-example to the other two examples that are going to be my main example. But basically, they read the book, the novel, the nonfiction, fiction book, whatever happens, whether they've seen a movie on the book or there isn't a movie on the book, it paints sort of a picture in their mind. And for some people, this is more vivid of a picture where it describes a red dragon, they see a red dragon or they see some semblance of a fragment of a red dragon in their mind, but they're more focused on the story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier for them to be entertained more by the words or, the plot line and only have vague images in their head of what they're seeing as that red dragon or this prince and this princess together and they're killing people and fighting off or running away or, fucking or something,
Yeah.
to varying levels, people
Hell yeah.
people have experiences where they are able to remember their subconscious and their conscious mind, kind of work together to remember experiences that they've already lived, or images, they've already seen. And that kind of falls over into the books or when you're reading something. So that's like the first the pre-example. Okay, so now imagine if, say, you were somebody who didn't the words just sprung to life, when you are reading. So it wasn't just you could imagine it, if you closed your eyes, or you could imagine it, if you're really focused on the book and maybe you've seen a movie before that. And so like Harry Potter, if you've seen the Harry Potters movies like I did before you actually read the book series.
Okay.
Which the book series ended up being way better, and I read the book series
way
twice,
better.
and movies are shit after that. But basically, it's the same thing.
Okay.
When your brain it memorizes stuff. It memorizes a lot more details than you realize. The subconscious brain, it's absorbing everything and it's filtering things to your conscious mind. And some people are able to use that to imagine, like when you're a kid, everything you see, it's like your mind's kind of more docile in a way. So you're able to imagine things, if you want to imagine a red dragon, you could just imagine it. You could play with your imaginary friends. You could play imaginary games with your toys.
Yeah.
It's
like being in Hook.
You could imagine a,
right, when they imagine all
like
the food and they're throwing the ice cream or pudding or whatever that is at each other.
Rufio.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
So do you read like Stephen King books at all?
I've read a couple. I've read Pet Sematary.
Okay. So I'm just bringing this up because Stephen King is like ridiculously like over detailed. in his books. And
Yes.
sometimes it's cool. Sometimes I'm like, Jesus Christ, let's just get through this. Like he will be like, talking about it was a hot summer day in a Tennessee town, with dirt everywhere. And then there's a
That's what I'm
St.
doing,
Bernard.
isn't it?
Yeah, St. Bernard's laying on the porch while Linda's in the rocking chair on the front porch, and she's drinking lemonade
Yeah.
that the condensation's rolling down. It's a recipe that her grandma, it just goes on and on. I'm like, holy fuck. Like, let's get through this, Mr. King. But so is that kind of like how your kind of brain sees everything? Like, do you get like full in detail of everything when you're reading like that?
Yes, that is definitely a way of putting it.
Okay.
Like everything that is detail, every detail is like I'm seeing it in front of me on a TV screen.
That's kind of amazing. Yeah, that's neat.
That's one example.
Cool. And like, how old were you, like when you first realized this? And also, I guess, question part two, like, how did you figure out that like this was like a unique thing?
Well, so what was the part two question before I rambled too much on one and then I forget number two?
It was basically like, when did you figure out, or like, how did you figure out like you had this, and how like
Other people did.
other people did it? Yeah, like you realized like,
Yeah.
oh, it wasn't just like I was weird, or like
Yeah.
not weird, but like just that one thing that's like,
Yeah.
not everybody is like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I was like really little, I was like 3, almost 4, I think. One day, it was kind of like I had like and I'm pretty sure I like saw somewhere like other people have experienced this, but basically like it was like one day they woke up and their life started. It was kind of like that for me, and it was like I had this very vivid dream. But I didn't remember it the day before, but it was like I didn't remember the weeks before, the years before, any of that, like the hours before it. I don't remember anything. I just remember me thinking, like on that day, oh, I guess my life is starting now.
Interesting.
And so when I started that day and every day onward, it went by very quickly for me. I'm 21 now, but it's like all of that has been 20 seconds. But basically, the reason I even mention that is because when I woke up on that day and that happened, I don't know if it was like a switch flipping, but I've been kind of in a constant state of amazement from that day, because that day it was as if I woke up with no boundaries on what I could think about, how I could think about it.
That's actually quite amazing. Like, I feel like this would be like a really cool movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It really, if you were to go over the entire details of everything that has happened in my life, it's not really, it's not something that you'd ever even read in a book. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant as hell, but
No, not at all. No, I mean,
uh,
everyone's got their
but-
own like unique things that they've gone, the goods and the bads through through their lives. But
yeah.
obviously, some people
Yeah.
are born with certain things like this. It's kind of puts you on the outer circle of everybody else. So you're gonna be living life through a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, when I kind of like realized or kind of started shifting into imagining, as we'll call it for now, it was really more of a way of entertaining myself, because I didn't find the socializing and the hanging out with friends and doing this and that as entertaining as like all the other kids did. And I suspect that is like from how my home life was like, but it did keep me entertained, and it kept me entertained very well. I would basically have it's like I would play pretend, but I would be using my toys. Now I had all sorts of random Legos and building blocks of toys and figurines. I had tons of them. And I had paper, and I had random objects in my house, and I was able to use that as a way of using, the own voices, like my own self-created voices and plot lines and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go through entire journeys throughout the day, 8 hours at a time, and it started out like that. Let's just say that.
It's impressive. So, like, go on, Tom. Boy, you gonna say something?
I was gonna ask, are you an only child, or did you have siblings?
I had siblings.
Okay, because like I can see a lot of only child like not having the siblings to bounce that off of, like, like you all play together or whatever. If you had, whatever the living situation was. But you said you have siblings.
Well,
so.
me and my older brother and sister, we had lots of fun. We teased each other. We played games. We like built teepees out of giant bamboo sticks. Because my dad like worked a little bit with bamboo sticks at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not bamboo sticks, just with selling bamboo, and he was also a caregiver for this guy, and there's all sorts of stuff that happened with that. But yeah, so I
pretty
did
much
have siblings, or at least for up to age 9.
So like pretty much,
and
like
then I was an only child after that.
Oh.
But yeah.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask why, or you don't want to talk about that?
I'd say we like maybe shift into it a little more gradually.
Okay, and
that's cool. No worries.
Absolutely, yeah, that's totally fine. So it sounds like for the most part, then that you mean playing around with like the siblings and whatnot's pretty normal, like childhood. So that, but you just get yourself caught up in your own like Jake world.
Yeah, because I the people I know that are sometimes only child that like have, just because they didn't have anybody to bounce it off of, that they dive deeper into the imagination a little bit. But that just could be, as a child versus where some kids like lose their imaginary friend eventually and move on or whatever.
Sure.
So
yeah. So here's the particular thing about that. So how I think this kind of progressed, I guess, is I feel like there was a need for me throughout my life that increased or decreased depending on the situation, depending on my environment, and just depending on how I'm thinking as a person. And that need was the need to escape.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is kind of your I don't know what you want to call it.
Escapism.
Yeah, your way to escape was to doing all this with like the Legos and whatnots.
And I don't remember exactly what you said that made. Oh shoot! Did I hang up? Okay.
No, you're still there. Yep.
I accidentally clicked the power button. Thought I hung it up. What was I gonna say? Oh, there was something. I think it was Tony. Something Tony said that triggered whatever I'm about to say now. But I believe it was the content of the world around me and how much I paid attention to it that kind of started to progress how that even worked, how me imagining stuff. Oh, now I remember. like you said about, children losing their imaginary friends as they grew older. Well, that is kind of what happened to me. My imagination, like, it came into not just like me playing with toys, but I'd just be running through like all of these, scenarios in my head and like these pretend games in my head. And it got to a point like even, kindergarten, and like elementary school, I always had a guy following me around, and we were talking about like theories of reality, kind of like the stuff like that are like cultish around like Reddit communities where they believe like this certain theory of reality or philosophy or certain things. It was kind of like that. We'd be doing that, all day, but it was only at school because I didn't have anyone come to my house. And so basically that progressed into eventually I had to leave my parents' house and my siblings and stuff like that, and live with my great-grandparents. And what happened then is I went from the imagining like scenarios and being able to entertain myself for hours, just like in an empty room even, I needed some scraps of random shit and I'd make
Yeah.
it into something that's like a whole ass, and that's more physical stuff. That's not really imagining. But I'll probably be able to get like more into describing what that is like, now semi-recently and, semi-old, because it's really transformed in many different ways, but it's always kind of retained that like it's like a vivid imagination. But basically, I went into playing video games like sometimes on my brother's console to where I didn't have my brother anymore, but I was at my great grandparents and I had a computer and they had an Xbox there, and I was just doing that thing all the time, only sleeping like 3 to 4 hours at a time. Basically any kid who, if he got access to that, and it was
Right.
for a short time. It was like under a year, but I played a lot of video games.
So you went from like having this like whole like Jake World imagination with like the toys and whatnots, going from that to basically just hooked on video games.
Yes.
Okay. And now is this caused from something from like going on with the family, with you moving to your grandparents' house that kind of triggered?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of like I guess you could call mama's boy, who grew out of that in a very interesting way.
Okay.
I used to, be really about like family and, just like hanging out with people and just like being in the moment, like every kid, is in their childhood. But the way that transferred is I kind of got sick of it, and I'm kind of a person who, once they get sick of something, they never go back to it. They'll ride something out to like the very end, but once they get sick of it, it's like they're never going back. If they decide something, they're never going to undecide that,
Yeah.
And so they're very careful about what they decide or what they completely 100% allow themselves to believe, because as soon as they do that, there's no going back. And I'll probably like show you like what exactly that means later on, but that's how it was. It was like, this is reality. I have school. I'm still going to school with my great grandparents. I'm still doing that. They enroll me in soccer, get a bunch of blisters on my feet, and then they enroll me out of it. And I only found this out later. I actually enjoyed playing soccer. I was playing video games every single day, as soon as I got home from school till the moment I went to sleep at 2 p.m. And eventually I had to move. And when I moved cross state. And I was told I was only going to be there for a year. I was moving with another family member.
Okay. I was going to ask this to the grandparents. Okay.
Oh, yes. So I went from my great grandparents to grandparent, actually. And what happened is, hold on, gotta unlock my. Okay, you still there?
Yep, we're here.
Okay. So what happened is it was cross state, completely different life than I was used to.
Okay.
That keeps opening.
Now, were you still like, were you growing up in like suburbs? Were you more like rural areas?
Suburbs.
Did you go from one to the other? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of went from suburbs to. I'm not really familiar with the lingo of what type of neighborhood is exactly what type of neighborhood.
Kind of more country-ish?
It was mostly. Yeah, so then mostly suburbs. Okay. I guess you would say.
Yeah, like your
at
neighbors,
least for that time period.
Next door, not like way down the street
Mm-hmm.
or a mile away or whatever.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
You kind of cut out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying like the rural area would be like if your neighbor's like a ways down the road versus like right next door, like right on top of where the houses are on top of each other. That's more suburb.
Okay.
Area.
Yeah. So like, suburbs, just houses, mostly houses, town stuff. If you take a drive or take a walk. But Um, um, where was I?
So you're moving
Oh yeah.
to with
So
like now a grandparent across the state. You think you said?
yes.
Okay.
So I moved across state. At this point, I'm used to just being left by myself on my own, but like help, within reach, parental, whatever, within reach, but mostly spending time just in my own world, in my own space. Um, not, School wasn't really like enforced or whatever.
How old were you at this
And
time?
I was 9, right about to turn 10. It was like the end of the summer.
Okay.
And so basically what happened is this grandma I moved with, she was a lot more strict, you could say. And she took, school very seriously. And after that summer was ended, I wasn't allowed to play video games anymore. And every time I did, I even want to play them because she would harass me about how they make you angry and violent when she would directly do something to annoy me or piss me off right before she said, "Oh, it's the violent video games,"
Every parent did
stuff
that.
like that.
Yeah, I remember that decade or whatever where parents are like, "Oh, video
We
games
heard on
are."
the news. It's evil. And it's like,
Yeah.
hand-eye coordination's pretty good because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, these violent video games are making the kids shoot up schools and fight each other." It's like, no, that's not it at all. But go
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So what that progressed in is I went from, like, I guess you could say, if before age 9 and where I was and what I was doing was all the fun in the world, it would basically be moving into no fun in the world, to put it in a weirdly illustrative way. But basically what that meant is all I was allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to, like, really hang out with friends other than like movies on weekends. School was the main focus, and it was the sole focus.
Yeah, kids
We
still need
had
to
outings,
socialize. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we had like outings. We had, places we went on, like, vacation. It didn't really do much for me. I didn't when I moved there, I kind of like went under a shift in my mind. I went from kind of like free spirited, free spirited, and not really paying attention to anything, to very spirited and not paying attention to anything. I ended up doing great in school. Like, I'm talking from the first day I moved there, they took it so seriously that I was getting straight A's by 5th grade and all the way up to high school. I was, studying, all the time, every time.
Yeah.
And there was, I guess you could say, there was quite a bit of pressure put on me.
Well, I'm sure that, yeah, the grandparents got to feel at least accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is I guess you'd say I had unrealistic expectations, as all young people do, for some sort of respect and care about, what I say. And
Sure.
I felt like that kind of wasn't being met in certain ways. And I dealt with it the wrong way, because it kind of turned into 5 years of me arguing, getting straight A's, studying, disassociating at school, and having fun at school, but only at school. And it was more just like, I don't know, it was weird. It's like the disassociation in terms of that time period in my life. It started off as like anxiety, and later turning into depression and just a lot of emotional issues that I didn't want to deal with anymore. So I found a way to deal with it until it just became, part of daily life. Except I didn't have that imagination anymore. It just, for those 5 years, I ended up completely losing the ability to have like pictures in my head and go through things in my head as vividly as I can today.
Okay.
And so it was about like 10 to 15, almost 16, that, it came to that point where I was just stressed all the time. It was one thing or the other, whether it was at school or it was at home. I just wasn't really enjoying life. I almost completely lost like the imaginative part of me. And, that led to some things. That led to some choices I made. And so then I got into juvenile hall. But before I note that, and I know I'm kind of like skipping over this time period, but it's just because it's kind of something I don't think really would contribute to the conversation since that
no,
time.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. I do want to note for that time period, though, I did get into reading a lot, and that's when reading started to become the imaginative part of things. And I was up to reading like literally a book a day. They were all fiction books that fueled some sort of like self-centered narrative. They had to be fiction. They had to be exaggerated with some type of character who just builds in their powers. But I or multiple characters who had some level of like humor in their writing.
Sure.
And I read like literally one of those a day, and I'm talking not just like 100-page book, like these were like 300-400-page books, and I was just reading.
That's a lot.
It's like as soon as I open that book, as soon as I'm at the place I'm left off, I'm gone. Like I'm just gone. The world, kind of shuts itself out, and so I was able to do that.
So they kind of like
and very very vividly see that like a movie. Every time I did that.
So they kind of like kickstarted everything back up for you.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So they kind of like kickstarted everything for you.
Yes. It basically, how I said about absorbing, the environment around me and how your memory kind of fuels your imagination.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like that. I was fueling my imagination with all these scenarios. It's like I was living lives that, I've never even lived, and it stored itself somewhere. Along with, some, the movies that I did watch, and movies that I watched when I was younger as well. I forgot to mention that. So yeah, that was the second or third phase or whatever.
Nice.
But another few things I want to note is something else that kind of started to happen as I was going through my life like this. I was kind of like a kid who, he'd get really motivated about things like that they were going to look forward to. And so they kind of just like surge with excitement. And so this was kind of like my first experience with visualizing. And I'd imagine kind of like how people who work with energy imagine auras, or, temple martial arts masters, they talk about chi or life force or whatever.
Yeah, Tomboy and I were kind of saying, like, when we were talking about before we gave you a call, I was wondering if it was kind of falls in kind of the same realm of like a synesthesia. You know what that is?
Yes.
Okay. And so we were also curious if that kind of...
Yeah, we had an episode all about that with Juno.
Yeah, Juno was our guest.
But, he kind of explained it all to us, how that his condition was, but...
Yeah, so...
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm about to get into exactly that part.
Okay, and before you...
Like more specifically that...
Right before you do...
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
As in right before you do, is this something that you've, like, ever, like, got, like, tested for, or, like... I'm trying to think of like knowing that this was like that can like I don't know what to call it, a condition, but
yeah, like you got diagnosed as like this is what the condition
so
is. Yeah,
it was more of something that once I like discovered it, what it was as it developed, it was more revealed to me in therapy, because the group home that I went to, because when I don't know if you remember when I said juvenile hall, but after that was a group home for 3 years.
Okay.
And it was a therapeutic group home, and that's kind of when it all happened.
Okay. And if we're skipping too far ahead, by all means, you can lead us the way.
Okay. So I'm going to touch back on kind of like the surging or whatever. And kind of be like, I'd get these bursts of excitement. And I've always been kind of the person that valued imagery where, I don't know if you've ever watched like that anime that has like, it's like Dragon Ball Z or something where they're like, they have their aura and they're like, with like Goku and stuff.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of light all around them. But, and they're like pulsing their aura or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was kind of doing that. I imagined like green, I guess you could call it like green light and yellow light. I think I was about like 7 when I first did this. And I just I'd flex all the muscles in my body and I just imagine this like golden and green stuff swirling through my veins and tendrils just coming out of all of my limbs as I'm thinking for the school field trip tomorrow. And that was the first instance of that. And second instance.
And so real quick. So like basically when you're seeing all of this happening, you're actually seeing it in your own head as if somebody was like watching one of those cartoons.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And it's like real, like vivid. Yeah.
Yeah, like real vivid because I don't know if I create some sort of mind-body connection by like doing that. But I feel like that's something that's kind of contributed to my imagination, not just being like visual, like hyperphantasia. For me, it manifests in every sense and only a little bit of smell though. That's one that doesn't really manifest as much.
Okay.
But
like definitely touch and feel and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You definitely like,
yeah,
like you said, you can feel like you're that anime character where you're like, over 9,000, whatever that is called.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are there any times that like you like find it like hard to like distinguish like the imagination portion of it to like what's like actually going on?
Yeah.
Yes, I was expecting this one. Yes, I am able to very clearly distinguish whether it's like real and not real.
Okay. Cool.
I recognize it as like a cool thing, especially as it's like grown. I've recognized it as like a cool thing I can control. It's not something that catches me off guard and I see my broomstick turn into a giant snake and attack me or whisper to me I need to go and rob a store. But because that can be acid. People can have
PCP.
disorders, things like that, and
sure.
They can also have hyperphantasia, and then that's when it becomes like a huge issue. That's why I hope my mind stays intact as I get older, because the way I see things now, I don't know how it you never know.
Yeah,
definitely.
You live in America, you're surrounded by toxins that people are just getting cancer left and right, and I'm like, oh shit. Like even healthy people.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
But yeah, anyways. So moving on to Juvenile Hall and the group home.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it started to come back. My stress levels were lower, even though I had to deal with a permanent record, or somewhat of a permanent record, because of how stuff like that works. But my stress levels went down, and I guess I did, continue to deal with, I guess you could call them like mental challenges that definitely played a part in when I did start to incorporate like coping skills, like meditation, and that you learn in places like that, and like visualizations and certain skills. It's like you can kind of incorporate hyperphantasia into that in many different ways. It's a lot easier to prepare for a situation ahead of time if you can actually be there.
Yeah.
Know how it feels. Know how, staring somebody in the eyes who like intimidates you is like, it's a lot more real than somebody who is just, you know what, I'm just gonna act impulsively, I'm gonna do it this way, or I'm gonna prepare by learning a set of stuff. For me, my only preparation is imagining it, and then I can do it.
That's actually,
in terms of like
pretty incredible.
acting and holding my composure and stuff like that, and controlling my emotions. I can't make me what's it called, know how to play the piano, unfortunately. But
certain skills you actually gotta learn.
Yeah. So basically, I spent time in there, and I learned all these skills around certain, just regulations, like not just like your mental regulation, just like your emotional, behavioral regulation, just indirectly learning life skills that all adults have to do. I'm just learning it at an earlier time. Many people just do it through wisdom. Other people need a little more help. They're like, okay, I don't believe wisdom because my emotions are X, Y, and Z, so they got to teach themselves to create their own type of wisdom, their own system, their things that they can control. Because I feel like a lot of issues that anyone has ever had, like mentally, it's because of some form of loss of control in their life, or over their body, or over, whatever situation they were in.
Right.
So I feel like that's another thing. Like, it was a way for me to maintain control.
Which is
in some way.
Yeah, that's fucking really cool. And if I can, to pull you back, I mean, I know you made the joke there about the piano, but like, do you have some sort of like creative outlet that, like paint or draw, something along those lines?
Yes, I do draw abstractly for my own, purpose, my own thing.
And so, like, do you?
I've never posted online or anything. Usually, I'll just be showing like people around me in person.
Sure.
Or just maybe do it in a public place. People walking by, they can see it, clearly. But
yeah,
I never make sure. I don't know. I don't really like a lot of attention.
No, I get
by
that.
more than two people. Actually, is after two people, it kind of becomes unbearable.
Sure.
Oh no, it's completely understandable. Like,
because then
you want to make sure, like, it makes you more vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, and you're afraid of getting hurt with that kind of thing. At least that's how I am sometimes. Like, I will hold back and, like, wait till I master it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. I just started.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. It's like, I mean, I do this stuff as a hobby. I don't do it professionally like these people who, go to art classes and train and stuff. It's more subconscious stuff that I'm like doing abstractly that I think looks, really cool to me, and, could look different, to other people. But, and I also do poetry, and it's kind of the same thing with that. Sometimes, when I was in the group home, I was doing it a lot more. I was writing like one every day, and sometimes it would come out like really good, like, holy crap, this is, so cool. I even competed with, it was like friendly competition, and competed with this other guy there, writing poems and stuff like that. But what was I going to say?
Is the drawing like...
Sometimes they just, and other times they sounded like completely batshit insane, like a crazy person wrote it. And usually those are the ones I think sound good, but it's usually the ones that I think are like okay, that like people actually like. But go on, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good. I just was gonna ask, like, with the drawings and like the poetry, is that just like you envision in your mind, like the drawings especially, like, do you envision in your mind it's like kind of you getting it out of your mind onto the paper, or is it like, are you inspired by something, or is it like, because like sometimes I'll think of like a song lyric that I like. Maybe I'll write a song eventually, but like I'll just write it down, just like to A, remember it later, and then B, it's like get it out in the world. Where's that in my head?
Yeah. So for me, I think it was more of that thing. Well, the part you said where getting it out, into the world, because again, it's kind of like a thing with like control. It's like I can overthink all day about one problem, and I think I can think of a million different solutions and scenarios till I'm blue in the face, till I'm, rolling, crying on the ground,
Yeah.
not like literally, but, poetry, what poetry does for me is it allows me to, it's like I'm painting a picture that's a lot more detailed and descriptive than any drawing I've ever done, but I'm doing it with words. And when I'm able to do that, it's usually only, it's a lot easier, and my inspiration, it comes from just being in a certain mood, in a certain state, and I'm also by happenstance or by chance happen to also be dealing with a problem or an issue or a passion or something that's been going good or bad for me, or something I've been thinking about that's like a painful memory or whatever. Once the emotion hits that at the same time, then I can write the poem. But it's really just something to like just get it out, because then I can, release it that way. Otherwise, it's just going to be
it
me
makes room for more.
bringing the people around me down. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes room for more creativity. Like, you just gotta empty the queue out, and then you can refill again.
Get new shit in there.
Yeah, because otherwise it just bogs down forever.
Yeah. And as far as like the drawings that you're doing or paintings, like, do you already have the full image in your head before you start, and then just kind of just form it as just kind of paint or draw this as you go, like already knowing basically like how it's gonna look when it's done?
Yeah. So in a way, and what I mean by in a way is when I'm ready to write and I'm putting, like, I have no idea what I'm going to write until I'm writing it. Then it's more kind of like I'm painting the picture that's already there, but it's like the picture is coming at me like I don't know how to explain it, like stop motion, or, in those like really old timey, videos, they had like multiple pictures to do, one movie.
Yeah, like the silent films and stuff. Yeah.
It was kind of like that, except the images are different every time. And then it's only until after the whole entire movie's done that you actually see everything that has happened. And
Nice.
The idea is right there, that I needed to express. So I have no idea what I'm going to write before I write it. No picture. Until it happens, then the picture is just painting itself, and it's kind of more fueling my words than my words are fueling the picture. So yeah,
Okay.
probably you are right, about that.
So like once the pen hits the paper, the brush hits the canvas, so forth, like you just kind of, everything just kind of flows out of you, and it just rolls, almost like autopilot, I guess, kind of, if you will.
Yes, exactly. That's yeah.
Okay. And and I think you mentioned before you're not really triggered by like smell and stuff like that. So I was curious for a second about the like involuntarily like imagery, but well, how about this? What about your dreams? Do you remember your dreams at all?
Yes, I do remember my dreams.
Okay. Do those also
but
feel
I actually have to like choose to remember them. So it's like there's like 1 millisecond, when I wake up, I either choose to remember it or I don't. So usually I have to like tell myself the night, I want to remember my dreams. And as I wake up, I'll remember it, because it's almost as if their dream ends up being more vivid just because I told myself to remember it. Like my brain's like, oh, I better make this one look this one good. He's paying attention,
Yeah, make sure we remember this dream. Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, like,
I've also.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've also experimented with lucid dreaming, and that was kind of a combination of like remembering the dreams and then actually trying to like wake up in the dreams. I don't know if you've heard of lucid dreaming.
Yeah, that's kind of like where you're able to kind of like actually control what's kind of going around you, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna fly, and then you can fly.
I wasn't always able to control, but I was able to be awake and at least control myself and what I'm doing. But the controlling things around me, that happened sometimes, and that was amazing when it did happen. It's funny because I can do that easier when I'm awake with my own imagination than I can do that in the dreams.
Yeah, that was my next question. if they were stronger when you're awake as opposed to sleeping.
Yeah. I feel like something that plays a key part in this is my, what's the word for it? My attention, and that sounds completely opposite of what I'm trying to say, but basically, imagine if you're trying to remember I'm holding in my hand right now, a cylinder that has creatine in it, when it's right in front of you, it's not hard to imagine it. But say you have something earlier from today you're stressing about, it's going to be a little harder to imagine it. Say you're trying to remember a song, but construction is going on outside and it's just blasting like really loud.
Can't
And these
focus.
are like theoretical scenarios for what I'm trying to, it's like the direction, if it's silent and it's going to be really easy to do that. If it's loud or there's a bunch of things going on at once, depending on how many of those things are going on at once, the more things that are going on at once actually makes it easier, because then it becomes closer to static. Then it becomes closer to a blank slate.
Interesting.
Staying calm.
Gotcha. I thought it would be probably like the opposite.
Yeah. Say I'm calm, right? And I'm just in a completely neutral state. I'm not overhyped up. I'm not anxious. I'm not worried about, stressed about things. It doesn't matter what's going on around me. It's there. Whatever I want to be there will be there. And so that's when it's really easy. It doesn't matter what my environment is.
Mm-hmm.
So like different things can play factors in it. And I feel like that's also been why it's more recently in life, it's kind of been a lot easier for me, is because I kind of have that. I have more of that ability. Maybe it was just practice, because I did start trying to kind of explore how far I could, really even take this, until it's kind of been like a permanent thing now. So now it's not like, oh, if I practice or, if I'm alone or undistracted, it's kind of like, if I want a long tendril of a slimy tentacle to come out of my hand, drain blood into the sink, and retract back into my arm, and then my arm, the texture on my arm turns into pineapple scales, and then that slowly dissolves into sand onto the floor, I can do that. And it used to be actually like way less than that.
Were you actually just seeing all that as you're saying it out loud?
Yes.
Cool.
But yeah, so I feel like now we're kind of getting closer to present time, because I guess because I'm 21 now. But basically, I got out of the group home and I went back to live with the previous person that I was living with, and I got into college. I did college for a semester. I did good there. It was kind of like, again, another stressful time. And so I wasn't able to I wasn't really even like worried about that. Like I didn't even want to do it. I didn't even want to use it as kind of like a daily routine, just to even just use it as a way of practicing mindfulness over my reality, and like choosing what I want to see, rather than just taking life as like coming at me.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a bit. And then I went south, let's just say that. And I tried another type of like trade schooling and stuff like that. That didn't work out. Then I was like homeless for a year. And yeah, there's a lot of things that happened since then. But yeah, so during that period, I think that period is important, is I learned a lot of things about myself and my subconscious that I never really knew before. Everything else I kind of was like taking life was just coming at me. But what I realized is there was a lot of ways of thinking, perceiving, beliefs that I had allowed people to put inside of me, that I had just accepted, and it just became a part of it wasn't really part of how I think, but it was when I wanted to think something different, that was what was limiting to that thinking different, limiting that thinking different from being actually productive and actually useful.
Right.
And so once I was able to do that, I think I slowly, through scenarios and confrontations with strangers and strangers giving me advice about, how I'm thinking, the way I carry myself, my attitude, how telling me stuff basically that nobody has ever told me before, and actually complete opposite of what I ever thought somebody could see in me. But it was the truth. Everyone has their own relative truth, but I believe it was closer to the truth than people just allowing me to be myself when I wasn't even like my full potential of myself, and because they didn't care, or
so were
they
these
did
more
care
words
and
of,
they didn't want to see me. Yeah,
well, is
yeah.
it like
go
more
on.
of like
Starting to
words of
ramble.
encouragement? No, you're fine. Or is it, when you're telling you things you didn't, hear before?
Well, it's just like
were they
no
positive
one
or
ever
negative?
disagreed with me.
Okay.
No one ever disagreed with me.
Gotcha.
No one ever criticized me, never criticized my character, never examined things about me and was blunt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And was actually intellectually, what is it called? Like, I respected them intellectually enough to actually listen to them. And usually for me, that was like my own jurisdiction, whether I liked them or not even like intellectually, but it's just some people I perceived as more authentic, and those are the ones I wanted to listen to, whether or not, I agreed with them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I met that kind of guy while I was homeless, kind of closer to the end of me being homeless, and because it was still like a period in cycles of me just not listening to people, and going through these cycles of scenarios and situations that kind of like push people away, and I didn't realize I was pushing them away. It's like I was in a constant state of squirming out of having a relationship and holding a conversation. And, I still have to work on that today. Like right now, I'm super nervous, so I'm like talking the whole time. I'm rambling off a bunch of things at once.
No, they're all good, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so good. Like
Podcast, you want to talk on it?
Yeah, that's the whole point, man.
Dead air is our number one evil.
Yeah. We need to talk here. You're
doing awesome. Man.
You're doing great, man.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, you don't have to be nervous at all. I did want to throw in here though, not to switch things up here, but I was just thinking about this, and I think we talked about it somewhere in there where it made me think of it. But does this work like kind of in the same aspect of like photographic memory, in a way? Like, is it easy for you to also like? And I ask that because of like, is there things specifically that you remember as far as like faces, locations? Is it kind of one of those things where like maybe someone's like, oh, hey, do you remember that one time, like my one friend that you met, like they were this and that? Like, is that come right back to you and go, oh yeah, I remember, like short dark hair, curly mustache, stuff like that?
Yes. So definitely, actually, I love that we're touching on that, because that's kind of something I want to go into describing. So it's like photographic memory, right? But in a particular way is what I mean to say. It's like photographic memory in a particular way. So, for example, if I see somebody's face, negatively, or as a source of some sort of stress, then I'll remember their face for the rest of my life, whoever they are. If I have a negative scenario with you, I will, or a slightly, situation that made me feel, not a positive way, I'll remember your face like as vividly as day.
Mm-hmm.
But the strange part is if it's the opposite of that, where it's very, very positive, I will forget you very, very fast.
Oh, jeez.
Because
the negatives impacted you a lot harder.
Yeah, it ties into kind of like my photographic memory, it's me, everything is tied into me trying to gain control in an unorthodox way over the world around me.
Yeah.
And I only use unorthodox methods when I don't have any control, like I don't have any skills or strength to deal with it. And I've been in a lot of those scenarios. But my mind has always been paying attention.
Sure.
And so the reason I say that, this is the next part where it's kind of going to describe why photographic is. I feel like my mind has been paying attention a lot more, or let's just say a little while back, I discovered that my mind has been paying attention a lot more than I realized. And usually it's from me being asked a question or being able to explain myself. Certain scenarios, whether it was school, whether it was groups in the group home, whether it was projects, things I hadn't prepared for, I was able to act as if and show that I had prepared for it like a long time, like I'm completely prepared, even though I'm not prepared at all.
Right.
Kind of like I was paying attention to 5 people talking at once and was able to take everything they said, touch on all their points, even though I was thinking about something completely different.
Interesting.
Just
Like
by using
multitasking,
context
kinda.
clues.
Yeah.
And I feel it relates a lot to patterns, and I feel like there's a pattern to everything we say, from the very beginning of a conversation to the very end. I feel like everything's kind of connected in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So based off of very, very little context, all you need is a little context, and your brain will kind of do the rest of the work for you. People
Yeah.
say it's like your brain kind of filling in gaps in time and kind of changing your memory, so you're not actually remembering what you think you are remembering. You're not remembering exactly. Well, it can also work the opposite way, where when you don't know anything, you actually do know more than you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the situation here. Is I've been paying attention. I say I, but really, I'm not talking about me, who interacts with people on a daily basis. More like the monologue, the observer that sits in the back 24/7. Observing my dreams and waking reality and just filing things away for the perfect time. Say I get lost in, a place full of a lot of turns and I don't even know where I am, but I don't get anxious. And if I don't get anxious, I go on autopilot and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my way back. I remember exactly, how to get back.
Right.
And
right.
that's kind of like what my mind can do when it's imagining. It's like I don't even have to try anymore. And before, again, it wasn't fully to the level it is today, but now it's as if it's second nature, just like changing your breathing.
Yeah. I mean, it's really neat to just, it's like,
yeah,
like you have like a superpower and you just kind of like
a second brain, yeah.
yeah. And like, like all the movies and TV shows and what have you as you watch, and it's like you figure out you have this superpower, and kind of just the more you like kind of doing it and like learning it as a skill and being able to control it. I find it super fascinating.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, it really is. It's an experience. I'll tell you what, because it's the kind of thing that like I always like admired. Like I thought, like, what if I could do that, one day? Until I completely forgot about that question I asked myself. Went through life, and I'm like, oh shit, I can do that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's and like you said with like the movies and everything, it's like my brain is. It's like being able to create, something out of nothing, but you're not really creating out of nothing. You're creating out of some pool that you can't see, that you reach behind your back, and it's like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. It's fucking neat. You ever thought of like I don't know, like help like designing things or logos for like companies or
a comic book or something?
Comic book? Yeah. Like writing stories or designing characters or anything like that?
I mean, I've always thought about it. It's actually been kind of something that I've been going over recently, especially with like the coming out of like AI. That's like being able to basically, to some extent, do the same thing I'm doing, except maybe less specific because the machine can't know what you think,
Right.
you know.
Not
But,
yet.
For now.
Yeah.
no, yeah. You said not yet, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, I've thought about that, and I've been thinking about it more lately. And I basically, the idea is like kind of like how somebody creates an app and puts it on the App Store or Google Play Store. You know, like somebody makes a video game, and all these hours of coding goes into that, or the way somebody writes a book. I'm thinking of like simulations,
Neat.
and I feel like it's like a multifaceted thing. So imagine like when you're really little, you're like playing pretend, you know, creating games, but in ways that explore concepts and ways of living and ways of dealing with scenarios that is more engaging and stimulating to the mind than just shooting people. Like eventually quick hits of dopamine by whether it's, you know, you're raiding other bases and you have like this base that you made, or you're, you know, competing against other people by killing them on this video game, or you're, you know, even going in sports. You know, eventually all those things either will still be possible or will be abandoned for something new, or just not possible anymore, so something new will have to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at least what I've been doing is basically drawing up graphs and things, and writing down like they're like these spreadsheets. I don't even know if spreadsheets is the word for it. I kind of have a hard time using what's directly on the internet because it like doesn't feel unique. So I try to like absorb it on the Internet Explorer a little, and then try to like do it on paper and just have it on paper. But basically simulations and ideas and designs for video games when video games eventually become more advanced, so that the video games become more worthwhile and more productive to the human mind than just the basic stuff that we have today.
Yeah, now's the time to start getting on that, man. Like, get into it before
like, there's ways. Yeah. It's just like there's ways of thinking and exploring things that like people haven't even thought of turning into a game. You know.
Right.
Life isn't just stories and upping your character. I mean, it can be that too, but and defeating or winning. It can also be more than that. You know.
Yeah.
That's basically something I've been thinking about. I really just don't know anybody, and I don't really know how I'm gonna I'll be able to apply it. But I'm trying to use AI to maybe explore it. But the AI, you know, it's really smart and really dumb at the same time.
Yeah. My
and sometimes
would be to like just draw it, AI, put it in like folders and stuff like that. And then you have your storyboard. Basically, you're making storyboards at this point. Then you can take somebody who does like video games or whatever, you know, and then work that way, or make a comic book with it.
Portfolio.
Like, that way you get like your message out to the world about like how you feel it or whatever, and things you are expressing, and then like also your story too. You know, you incorporate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now's the time to get started, man. Like he's right. Like get like a good portfolio together. Yeah, and then you can just bring that. You just do your research and find companies that might be looking for a designer for different characters or stories,
do it
or
for yourself, and then put it out in the world. Like we'll
start there.
The hell out of you. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
It's all about networking. Once it gets past the creative part, it's about networking, and then that goes to like, you know, oh, I know a guy, and then they'll help you out with whatever, you know.
I've been kind of realizing that, you know, now, just with all that, because like it used to feel so impossible for me, but now it's kind of like, technically all I need is to meet the right person, and eventually it'll, you know. And I'm getting deja vu right now. That's another thing that I a lot.
That's a good sign.
I get deja vu a lot.
Yeah.
I get it almost daily. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Keep it up, dude.
Yeah,
just start now.
Yeah.
You know, and
like I said, if you ever want to come back, like you want us to plug it, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
Thank you so much, guys, for agreeing to interview me.
No,
sure.
I've never even done something like this, so it's kind of like I didn't even know if I was gonna just be stuttering the whole time. But
no, man, you did a great job.
The hardest part is at least talking or just calling us or whatever. Or
Yeah.
answer the phone, because
Yep.
we've had people just bail on us or whatever. But if you just the hardest part is just that first step of just answer the phone, and it's all right, cool.
Then it turns into just a regular
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Well, yeah, we're about our time here. So thanks again, man, so much. This was super fascinating. I hope you had fun. I know I did.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we, an hour has already gone by, and I feel like we've barely even dug into anything. So maybe somewhere down the road, we'll have to get you in for a part 2, and we can, maybe we'll,
that'd be
by
wonderful.
then you'll have some of this, your projects going. We can get an update on that, or we can get into I'm sure there's probably more stories that you were wanting to get into, and we just, unfortunately, we're kind of
definitely.
limited on time. So
I wrote a bunch of shit down, but I haven't looked at it once.
Hey, sometimes that's the best thing.
Talk
Though.
about.
yeah.
We do that too, where we have a list of questions that we didn't get to half of them, and you just go with whatever the conversation is.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes the conversations or the stories or whatever just kind of flow, and it just turns that way. So don't lose that paper, and then you can, use those for the next episode.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely.
Have a
Thanks.
wonderful evening.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sweet.
Okay. Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
Interesting. Very fascinating.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there was a lot of twists and turns in there. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
For the better, and oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to getting Ben back in touch with them and doing a part 2 somewhere down the line here.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that flew by so fucking fast,
sure.
and we barely got into anything.
I know.
Which I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, but it's like we said, it's sometimes the best or it detours to the point where those questions weren't on our list. And oh, that's way more fascinating than what I had.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, you guys know the routine. At Pizza Bagels Pod and all the social medias. Don't
We've
forget.
only done 100 and something episodes.
Yeah. Share, subscribe. Well, we might get some new listeners
That's true.
and stuff too. So
every episode could be somebody's first.
right, exactly, Tomboy. So at Pizza Bagels Pod and all the social medias. Share, subscribe, tell your friends.
Tell your grandma.
Tell your grandma. Give us a call. Leave us a voicemail. Shoot us a text. Send us photos. 440-363.
0121.
Nice. What was that we were talking about in the beginning of the episode of to call and the pronunciation of
Yeah, tell us what we're wrong.
yeah. We want to hear if you tell us. Leave a voicemail if it's
Tell us we're wrong.
dwarfs with an F or dwarves with a V. Other than that, I guess it's time to just make a tree and get the fuck out of here, huh?
Yeah.
Cool. 440-363.
0121.
Bye-bye.